You know, my name is William Wallace Ascol.
See, you are Braveheart, and you're talking,
and people are standing in line to stretch me out on the rack too.
Yeah, and if that's what it takes, I feel you're willing to do it. Today on the Liberator podcast, we are super excited to have Pastor Bill Ascol with us. Pastor Bill, thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's great to be here.
As always, we have James Silberman and Sam Riley. My name is Russell Hunter, and this is episode number
21
of the Liberator podcast, and the first episode of 2021. Yep. At least the first filmed episode of 2021.
And we've been out for, a week now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get it last time because of Christmas break and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
we took a break. We're going to do really good this year about having them every Thursday night. I've got COVID.
It was the only one we missed in 4 months. So
yeah, which is for us really good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we've got a lot of things out of the way, but we're about to be coming into the busiest time in the life of Free the States. Upcoming legislative session. The abolitionist movement is doing well in Oklahoma. And today, I'm super excited about this particular episode because for the longest time, the abolitionist movement in America, since it's been sort of reignited back in 2010 and 11, one of the issues that we've been having is the difficulty in getting pastors, faithful preachers and teachers of the Word of God, leading local churches involved in the work of abolition. And as those of you who watch the show regularly, you're like, guys have a pastor on like every other week. And part of that is because men in Oklahoma in the pulpit have sort of come along and done a great job of recruiting their brothers in the pulpit. And so today, super excited, we have one of the main guys who's kind of opened that up in the state of Oklahoma, Brother Bill. So,
wow.
Yeah, so if abortion is ever abolished, it's going to be because of you and the faithful work of men like you being obedient.
I appreciate that.
So why don't we start with you just talk a little bit about yourself, how you became a Christian, became a pastor, became an abolitionist.
I'm a native of Beaumont, Texas. I grew up there. I'm the fifth of 6 children, and grew up in a home where I had a very godly mother who made sure my earliest memories sitting on her knee, letting her tell me stories about the scriptures, singing songs about the Lord. To me, I go way back to that. And in that climate, became a follower of Jesus Christ when I was a real follower when I was 20. Back in the Baptist setting that I grew up in, when you were about 10, you were supposed to walk an aisle and get baptized. And I did all that, but I just wasn't saved. There was just one thing missing. I had not had a saving change. Exactly.
The walk the aisle thing is very effective.
Exactly, yeah. So but when I was 20, though, the Lord just encountered me in a powerful way and showed me that my religiosity, I joke with people and tell them I was Billy Baptist growing up. You know, if you open the church doors, I fell through. I was there for everything. Yeah. And but I just wasn't saved. So the Lord saved me when I was 20. Then not too long after that, I was studying pre-law, planning to pursue a career in law, and the Lord made it plain to me that He intended for me to pursue the ministry. So I finished up my degree at Lamar University and headed to Fort Worth, Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and trained there for 3.5 years, got my master's of divinity, and I figured when I got out, I would either go to Texas, because I'm a native Texan, or I might go to Colorado. I love Colorado. Oh, yeah. And I sent resumes to those areas, and the Lord called me to Shreveport, Louisiana. And so
this is not Colorado.
I honestly did not send a resume to Louisiana, but I had a wonderful ministry there under the tutelage of a great guy, John Sullivan, and then ended up spending about 30 years or more pastoring in Louisiana in different places. For the last 15 years, I've been in Oklahoma, Bethel Baptist Church in Owasso. We love the folks there and love the ministry there. And, of course, the good one of the wonderful providences of God is that's because I'm in Oklahoma. He's brought me in touch with you guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was slowly moving you towards the center of the universe.
Exactly. That's right.
There.
Yeah, right there in Tulsa. That's where it is, isn't it? Isn't there a place you can stand in Tulsa where you're supposed to be in the center of the universe?
I think it's Norman, but
okay, maybe so.
But no, yeah, I mean, it's great because like it is always a story of providence because you look at it and you're like, how did this person end up in this sphere?
Right.
And I think everybody's story is a story of providence, but faithful obedience and providence. So yeah, super thrilled that you're in Oklahoma. I was born in Texas too. We don't really talk about it.
Where's that?
Denton, apparently.
Okay.
I haven't seen the records, but that's what I was told. I believe it. I guess.
Beaumont is a great place to be from.
Is it? but is it near Fort Worth?
No, Beaumont, southeast Texas. Houston, 70 miles east of Houston, I think.
On the other hand, Denton is not a good place to be
Denton is not. Yeah, I mean, because it's in Texas.
But the emphasis is to be from. Not necessarily to go to, but to be from.
Yeah,
same can be said of California, I think. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, at least you're not from California.
That's right.
Yeah.
But no, so super excited, and you're there in Bethel Baptist, and good size or medium sized church there, and you've been faithfully sort of shepherding your folks to get involved or understand the ideology of abolitionism, that, hey, as Christians, we need to be abolitionists. But when and how did that start?
That's a great question. I've been involved in the pro-life movement for decades.
Yeah.
We lobbied the legislature in Louisiana when I was in Clinton. We're just north of Baton Rouge, so the state legislature met in Baton Rouge. We would go down and lobby them for pro-life bills, and I would describe myself back then as a principled pro-lifer. By that I meant no exceptions. The context I was raised in by my mom, the circumstances of my birth. I weighed less than 5 pounds when I was born, and I'm a strong believer that God is the one who opens the womb. God's the one who gives life.
That's right.
And what happened, though, was I kept having to give these disclaimers about being a pro-lifer. So the idea of being principled, I'm a pro-lifer, but I'm different from these other guys.
I always have to qualify.
Exactly, give these qualifiers. The rape and incest thing, and I never embraced the propriety of that. Mm-hmm. And so I kept bumping into folks. Well, I bumped into professional pro-lifers, I discovered, who made their living promising to end abortion, but really, when you look at their track record, they didn't do anything substantial to end abortion. And then the last straw for me was the political pro-lifers, the one who get in office by virtue of promising that they will end abortion.
Right.
And then the thing that pushed me over to embrace the abolitionist moniker was when the Oklahoma Baptist Convention leadership a couple of years ago rose up to speak against SB 13. I'd read it. It was an abolitionist bill. I liked it. I thought this is exactly what we need.
Yeah. Probably what you had always thought or wanted to see out there.
And then they got together and said, this is a bad bill. And at that point, I repented because I'd kind of assumed that Oklahoma, being the most conservative state in the union and a lot of conservative Christians, and that this was going to be taken care of. And so I was just minding my own business, pastoring a congregation. And at that point, I got slapped in the face by the Lord.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got to get involved in this. And so we did. A group of us met before the convention in 2019, looked at the resolution on stopping abortion, and said, let's put some teeth into it.
Yeah, because it was the general sanctity of life.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just kind of, it was nice. It was strong, but let's call for the end of abortion immediately without exception or compromise. So did that, overwhelmingly adopted. And that's when I came on y'all's radar.
Yeah. Well, I think the funniest thing I heard, this is like one of my favorite things that I heard all 2020 or 2019. Whenever I heard it first, I was just like, oh, that's
probably more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, wow, this is gold. Whenever I
haven't seen you cry very often.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you haven't seen me cry. What are you talking about? But one of the sort of anecdotes in your story and I don't know if you told. I think we got on the phone and you were telling me, and I was like, "Wow, that's rich."
Oh, you're talking about something else.
Yeah, but it's part of it. But when you had at the then Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma had put forward the resolution to end abortion immediately without exception, and it passes, someone from the leadership comes to you and says, Are you with those AHA guys? Are you with Free the States? Just assuming, because you've done this biblical thing of taking thou shalt not murder seriously. Right. You must not be with the Baptist General Convention. You must be with these lunatics.
Yeah, I mean, I was asked that the next day, and I said, I don't know who they are.
I loved it. You were telling me on the phone, like, I don't know who those guys are, and I'm like,
I said, what is AHA? What's that stand for? I don't know.
Who are you talking about?
And so I was given a description of who you were, and I said no. I said, but if they're for ending abortion now, then I'm on the same page as they are.
Yeah,
and that's well, who'd you do this for? I said, I did it for the children who were being slaughtered in the womb.
Yeah, it's pretty telling that it's always expected. Like, what was the political lobbying?
Who put you up to it?
What was the hijinks behind this? But just like the Bible. Mm-hmm. And so, and of course, some of the men that you were doing it with knew about that, and different people knew about it. But it wasn't sort of an act of sort of scheming or being crafty.
No,
it was just
it was an outrage response. Yeah. How could we trust our leadership and then betray that trust the way they did? I wrote to them, to the executive director, to the messenger editor, and I said, this is wrong. You're on the wrong side of this issue.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, as I began to dig, and I think you messaged me, you sent me a Facebook message that told me who you were and appreciated what was done, and I think you encouraged me that it had been better to use the word abolition to abolish abortion.
I'm sort of a stickler on that sort of thing.
And so that's how we started talking on the phone about that. But that's what happened to me. I assumed that people would do the right thing, and they didn't. And when they didn't do the right thing, then I said, okay, I've got nobody to blame but myself. Yeah, I'm gonna get up. And so now we've let our people. Bethel Baptist Church congregation is on board completely. Coming up later on this month, in fact, this Sunday, the 17th, Sanctity of Life Sunday.
Right.
So we will take a few minutes. My wife will speak about the Pregnancy Resource Center in Owasso, which we support. But I've made it plain to our people, we're going to have our big emphasis February the 7th when we bring Russell Hunter in to preach for us. And then the 8th and 9th, we're going to the Capitol to call for the abolition of abortion. But that's where we are.
Yeah, which is melting somebody's brain right now as they hear that. It's like, wait, what did you just say? That's right. I mean, and it's been one of these things, and I saw it in history, in studying the history of the abolition of slavery or the history of sort of the early missionary movement, where you've got these radical people that you would never let into your pulpit.
Right.
And they're not really all that radical. They're usually just saying, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
But the culture's sort of not with them on that. But once that breaks down, once that sort of wall where sort of like the pastors are saying, no, this is biblical, things start to happen. Mm-hmm. Until a pastor says, no, I've looked at this, I've studied it, it's biblical, we're going to do this. People in the congregation are generally right to be kind of like hesitant, a little bit like, I don't, that's one of the things that the shepherd is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Now that doesn't absolve them from looking at the Bible themselves, but I think that is one of the things that has occurred to where when people look at Oklahoma, they're like, why? How are they gaining the ground that they're gaining? And I think it's just this sort of convergence of just regular Christians and pastors working together to do this. And there's not sort of any hostility.
Exactly.
So, but it takes a certain amount of humility.
Yeah, but back to the last point real quick about the kind of the convention and convention leaders. I think as a caveat, I think we should add that a lot of the people who we were outraged against 2 years ago are much more with us now, just as a caveat. For anyone watching.
Yeah, exactly. If someone's watching and it's like, well, I was on it. That's a beautiful thing because some people were on the other side. Yeah. And there are like you can as a historian or whatever, you can see the invisible hand of God with different things.
Absolutely.
And I remember some of the other pastors we've had, like I guess Brett Baggett has told me, it's like, well, I'm on Facebook, and there's some guy that I kind of know talking about how the Baptists are going to oppose Senate Bill 13. It's like some lunatic on Facebook is telling me that my denomination is going to oppose, not just sort of,
not only not support it, but openly oppose it.
Like tell their people we don't think that we should be supporting the abolition of abortion. And I remember making that video. So I remember being at the Capitol, trying to talk with some the legislator who was carrying the bill and some leaders in the denomination, and it just being sort of like a door slammed in my face, and then saying like, "Oh my gosh, I got to tell people," and I don't, I know they're going to do this, so I told people like the day before that happening, and then it was that kind of shock. I think no way, and then when it happened, they're kind of like, "What's going on?"
Right.
And then within a week, pretty much on your own, or I guess Dusty Devers and the pastor down there in Elgin or wherever, Lawton, just a bunch of
group of the Christ-centered churches pastors in that area.
Yeah, they basically said, well, we gotta, we know this is sort of like a AHA Free the States thing or whatever, but we got to have a rally.
You have to answer it,
and we have to say they're not speaking for us. And it was sort of like, you got 10 pastors doing a rally. But as James mentioned, the awesome thing is that many of the folks that were on the other side of that back in 2019 that were saying, we're going to oppose this, are now going, last year they were like, let's hear it. And now they're kind of like, let's do it. So, and it's just that sort of obedience, but it's repentance.
That's something maybe you can speak to a bit. Just talk about the momentum in the convention, both with leaders of the convention and just with your fellow pastors in Oklahoma Baptists.
The rank and file membership of the Oklahoma Baptist Convention wants to see abortion abolished, whether they use that word or not. They want to see it. They want to see the thing of the past. They know it's a sin. They know it's murder. The leadership is mixed. And I really believe that what I've learned is that it's who influences. One of the toughest things for some people to do is say, I'm wrong or I was wrong.
Been doing the wrong thing
exactly
half a generation.
And the Oklahoma Baptist legacy has been to lead the way, to try to influence and encourage legislators to pass legislation that everybody says will end abortion. Okay, it hadn't happened. We know it hadn't happened, but that's kind of been the traction there. And so you have a mixed approach to this by the leadership. But I really believe over time, as folks learn more, as the groundswell comes, and I believe it will come from the rank and file of Oklahoma Baptist church members, that you'll see a change even at the very top of leadership. And I have to say that very carefully because Baptist Convention of Oklahoma, Baptists are a bottom-up arrangement. The highest appeal in a Baptist convention is the local church. All right, people think of Methodism and Presbyterianism, and it's top down. We're not top down. And so it's just a matter of the folks in the local church reminding the leadership, you represent us. You don't dictate to us. And we expect you to represent us in these areas. They can certainly suggest, they can come up with program ideas, but people ask me from time to time, why do you stay in this or that and the other? Well, the answer is, as a Baptist, Southern Baptist, Oklahoma Baptist, there's not a thing I can do tomorrow outside of the convention that I can't do today inside the convention. There are some things I give up. I give up a voice if I go outside. You and I talked a little bit about the Puritan separatist approach to this thing. And for the time being, I've determined and chosen to be a Puritan. I'm going to work within the framework until I'm compromising my convictions to stay within the framework. And at this point, that's not happening. Nobody's telling me that I can't speak for abolition. Nobody's threatening me. They can't they can't threaten me. When one of the things that attracted me to you, people warned me. I said, he's mean. Russell Hunter's he's just so mean. I'm thinking, people say I'm mean. So I may have a lot in common. I need to meet this guy.
Yeah.
Maybe a kindred spirit or something.
You're not mean. They're like, I know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Because that in pro-life circles, that is the word about T. Russell Hunter. Right? He's so mean.
I know, and I feel really bad about that.
We had a friend come from Ohio to the recent conference at Brett's church, and she's sitting in the crowd. She's listening to you talk, and she's interacting with you kind of between talks and stuff. And she goes over and she tells Rachel, "Man, he's very likable. He's a likable guy."
I
think that is more the thing when people get to know you.
I like it, but I don't like every single time that I talk anywhere or meet people anywhere, they come up to me afterwards and I have to like waste 5 minutes of our precious time saying, "Oh yeah, they probably just said I was mean because they didn't want you to think about what I was saying or whatever. And all I was saying was what Isaiah was saying. Oh, by the way, they thought Isaiah was mean, probably.
Sure.
So it's a regular pattern.
Okay, I told you that I'm a reformer. That's God's used me that way everywhere I've pastored, which means I go in, assess the situation, and then try to bring reformation for the congregation to be more biblically shaped and informed. And I've said to people through the years, if I were to believe...
That's the key to church growth, isn't it?
It's that's what I call the church ensmallment campaign.
Yes.
And so, but if I were to believe the things that people have said about me, I would not want to meet me in a dark alley. It'd be terrifying. Just a description, right?
It's like, I wouldn't like me either.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but I've gotten to know you. You're just really a big teddy bear. And,
thank you.
And with conviction. So that's the thing. Yeah. People are afraid of folks with conviction. Folks say all the time, well, he's talking about me. He's just so dogmatic. No, I'm not. I mean, I'm convinced of some things, and the Scripture teaches some things pretty plainly. Now, I'm also a good student, so if you can bring more light to bear on it, then I'm all for it. But I've got a lot of questions if you start teaching me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the thing. It's like whenever you start asking questions and want reasons, that's perceived as...
Well, if you challenge people to think and you don't let them emote, they don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
And they don't like being told that they're the emperor who has no clothes.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't like that.
Yeah.
And that's where you find a lot of people, I think, in this very battle that we're in. They will be won in time. Yeah. Abortion will be abolished at some point by God's help using some people. And I believe that Oklahoma Baptists, because of the state of Oklahoma, your influence here, are uniquely poised to bring that to pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't say this to try to like put undue conviction on people, but this is something that I intellectually believe. But back in sort of 2019, even 2020, were it for the leaders of the BGCO, like the leaders, were they to become very loud, very bold, not sort of like, well, I got to wait on my people to move them along, but like, I'm going to lead my people. I'm going to use the influence that I have. It is bottom up, but I am going to stand in the pulpit and I'm going to say, this is right, this is just, this is biblical, this is what we're doing. It could have led to the abolition of abortion.
Oh, sure. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
And that's all it takes. And so the kind of scary, hard thing, which someone's going to say, well, that's mean, but I feel like I have to say it, is that the reason that 5,000 babies were murdered in the state of Oklahoma in 2020 was because the BGCO and groups like that did not stand up and do what they ought to have done in 2019.
That's right.
Because that is the way our system of government works.
Yeah, they hold a tremendous amount of influence. Like when Jason Smalley, when he realizes, oh crap, I'm kind of in trouble here. All these people are really mad at me because I'm holding up this bill to abolish abortion. Well, what should I do? What should I do? Oh, I'll go talk to the Baptists and have them kind of give me some cover here.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and that, I mean, the influence held by conventions, especially Oklahoma Baptist being the largest one, is
Right.
very, very large.
Yeah.
And so if that is utilized, and we just got a new leadership team, or you guys just got a new leadership team.
Yeah.
I attended an ARP church, but yeah, you guys got a new leadership team recently. And yeah, if they really elbow up and like really fight for this thing as it should be fought for.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we could be a year away. We could be 2 years away.
And this isn't conjecture. These guys literally did say, I'm going to kill this bill. And like to tell Joseph Silk, you need to go talk to the Baptists. I'm going to kill this bill with the covering and blessing of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma. And then to kind of go back to what you said, the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma did that top down without talking to all the pastors. And that's why, like, that's the billiard ball, boop, boop. And then the pastors are like, you don't speak for us.
Right.
You can't unilaterally.
It's a really good thing that it happened, because the sin of omission that was happening with the Baptist influence that was not being brought to bear with abortion was suddenly just made official. It was like, here is our declaration that we're opposing abolition, and that's when a lot of people woke up.
Yeah.
That's when a lot of the pastors that, the rank and file pastors that you were talking about suddenly realized, wait, all this time, these people that have been representing us, they haven't been speaking for this, and now they're speaking against it. They're making official the thing that they were withholding.
Yeah, you just, I used the term a while ago, you just assumed that they were the ones that are going to carry the ball on this matter.
Yeah.
And then when they come out against it, then, okay, game's up.
Yeah. And then I think a year or two goes by and they're like, well, I'm really uncomfortable in the trajectory of history being known as the people or the group that oppose the abolition of abortion.
Well,
Yeah.
who wants to be on the wrong side of history?
Yeah. That's what,
Nobody who's thinking. Nobody wants to.
yeah. And it's not just for selfish and
No, it's what we have to also recognize, fellas, is there are principled people in this movement. I would count myself as one of them. But you're in a sea of pragmatism.
Yeah.
Pragmatists who want to see abortion ended, but don't think that the way we're going about it will work. When they become convinced by the principled people that this is the path, and the way that happens, I think, is when you begin to demonstrate to them a track record of everything you have counted on to end abortion is not doing it.
yeah.
You're running out of options here. You're running out of nomenclature, the way to even describe a bill. It gets ridiculous at some point, the different nuances.
Running
you
out
want to
of
put.
regulations.
Exactly,
to pass.
exactly. That the only way to stop this is to, stop this.
Yeah.
Identify it as murder, make it illegal, and stop it.
Yeah. I'm always like concerned, like, how are they going to get creative? Like one of the House legislators texted me and said, well, we're kind of running out of things to do, and nothing we do gets the approval of anyone anymore. You guys have kind of ruined our game. And I'm like, yeah,
Good.
yes, we have. And
Glad
but
to see
then
you waking up.
but then the legislative session's coming up, and we hear rumor of sort of a fake abolition bill. They're going to put forward something else, so that people don't get behind Warren's bill. But that's why we exist, to say that's bad.
Here's the deal. When I was in college, I worked on the grounds of the campus as part of the way to pay my way through college. And I worked for an elderly fella who was had a lot of common sense. He said, let me tell you how it's going to go with you working for me. He said, I expect you to be honest, forthright. He said, if you fool me once, shame on you. You shouldn't do it. He said, if you fool me twice, shame on me. I ought to know better. He said, I promise you, you won't get to fool me twice.
Yeah.
Now, that's where I think we are with the legislature. Caught me napping a couple of years ago. We're watching now. And if they pull out a fake abolition bill, we're going to call it exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Let folks know this is fraudulent. And if you're not going to get by with it,
Yeah.
I'm going to pass.
And they still think that they're going to. It's like they do not know what has happened among a very large, loud group of
And
people.
it's a growing
Yeah.
group.
Well, and the more they play their tricks, the bigger the movement is going to get, too.
Exactly.
It's like the first time it was already a huge ignition of this, of these people that were coming into it. And next time it's just going to be even worse, because all those same people are going to be bringing this back as ammunition to flocks and to the people that they know, and it's just going to get worse for them.
Yeah. And it's that sea of pragmatism, really. I would love to think that, you could say, look, here's what the Bible says. Here's the situation we're in. Here's what the Bible says to do. And then people are like, okay, you're abolition.
Right.
That works nice with a certain amount of people. But there's a large number of people who still are thinking, yeah, but will it work?
Right.
Well, what's sad is that we've had 48 years of the stuff that works not working.
Yeah.
And so pragmatically, the pragmatic position has proven itself.
Exactly. And we have to somehow figure out a way to mute the voices of the people who are saying to them, abolitionism will not work. I mean, we got to call out Tony Allowanger and people like that and say, you don't listen to him. His advice is like one of Job's friends. Stop listening to it. Okay.
And see, this is the sort of thing we must do. And this is where the accusation of you're being mean.
Right.
I mean, we did have people message the legislature in 2019 saying, stop listening, just subject line, stop listening to Tony Allowanger. They were ticked at that. But the thing is we were sort of flexing the fact that, like, listen, we've got thousands of people listening to us. We're telling them what Tony Allowanger's doing. And they are listening and understanding that we're not tricking them.
Right.
And in the providence of God, Tony Allowanger's scheming behind the scenes, writing letters, trying to do these machinations to make sure that Joseph Silk isn't heard.
He's
getting busted.
Trying to come up with technicalities by which that they could not hear or disqualify SB 13.
And pro-lifers who really are in a good place, they don't call themselves abolitionists, but they think that that's what the pro-lifers, seeing a letter from the guy that they've been sending money to for 2 decades, where he's saying, well, we can't abolish abortion because if we abolished abortion, that would do away with our regulations.
Yeah.
That's the exposing the unfruitful deed of darkness, which really extricates some of these people.
And I think, given their criticism that abolition won't work, it's only true according to their current state. They are spineless.
Yeah.
And so because they're spineless, they're only going to go for pragmatic solutions that don't require them to have a spine. And so when abolitionists come in and they say, no, we're going to abolish abortion right now, we're going to do the thing that God wants us to do, and it is going to be bold and it's going to require you to be brave about this, they can't go for that because currently they're spineless and they don't want to do something like that. They want to be flexible and try to get their way with the people that they're trying to appeal to, but they don't want to have to do something that's going to require anyone to have hate them for it.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like one of the things that Greg Treat will always says is that, well, if this bill would save a single life, then I would get behind it. And it's it's true in the sense that if this bill were passed right now, the Oklahoma government would not actually stand up to the federal courts, maybe, and therefore it wouldn't save a life.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you change your demeanor, if you actually act courageously, this will save all the lives.
Yeah, the only thing
it takes your spine in order to make this save lives.
What they're hiding is that the only thing keeping the bill from passing and saving lives is them.
Yeah,
right.
It's no other outside force.
Exactly.
The Planned Parenthood, the Democrats, liberals, pro-aborts, whatever, have zero power.
That's right.
We're talking about a dominated Republican, conservative, Christian, professing, pro-life Senate, House, and governor.
Yeah, there aren't very many Democrats in Oklahoma to criticize.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few, but
we even got pro-life Democrats here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you keep shining the light like you're doing, like we're trying to do, because at some point these folks have to look into the glaring light and realize they either look like they're ignorant, and you lose that excuse at some point, or they're complicit. And we're going to take those things away from them. And I'm looking forward to this session saying to as many legislators as I can, don't insult me by suggesting that we can look to this Supreme Court to do the right thing. This Supreme Court has done so many wrong things recently.
And on top of it, they have the Supreme Court that they say that they had to have.
Exactly.
I mean, they've got the majority pro-life Trump-appointed Supreme Court. So if it is true, even on their own strategy, you should send them a bill now.
Exactly.
Send them a bill now before Biden changes it on their strategy.
Right.
Like, I don't think we need the Supreme Court's permission
I don't
to
either.
protect babies from murder. But even on their own strategy, they ought to pass Senate Bill 1203, the Abolition of Abortion Act that's coming up, pass it, send it to them as quickly as possible. If they really do care. But I mean, I think we can't state it enough that really it is not, it's the inaction of sort of, the people to get after their legislature. And it's the inaction of the leadership and the legislature, the spine, the willingness. But that's all it would take.
Right.
We're not making this up.
And they're expecting the appointment of Supreme Court justices that have what they lack. That they have a spine, and they're going to go against years and decades of precedent that they don't want to go against. They don't have the guts to do that.
Yeah.
So why would they expect someone to get through the courts, to eventually get appointed to the Supreme Court, to get to that position and pass the Senate, pass all the proceedings, and eventually somehow they're going to do that, but
and
they don't have that.
delegitimize themselves. Like, they're going to delegitimize, like the Supreme Court's going to wake up.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so really, and the idea, and I was watching one of the leaders of the anti-abolition movement in America speak at the Texas Capitol the other day, Abby Johnson. And she was saying, she sounds like an abolitionist the whole time, and she's like quoting Francis Schaeffer without quoting Schaeffer, she basically is saying everything we're saying, but then she's like, and that's why we need to support this pro-life scheme. But she says, there are all sorts of bills that are waiting to be heard by the Supreme Court that are going to repeal Roe v. Wade. But none of those bills are a straight-on challenge to Roe v. Wade. They're all designed and written to work within the parameters of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Like, no bill. So, like, if your belief is you got to send a bill to the Supreme Court that directly challenges the central holding of Roe, it's got to be an abolition bill.
Has to be.
You can't send them some kind of visiting privilege bill.
No.
And they're going to be like, not only that, but abortion's murder and it's not constitutional.
No, if you don't have equal protection under the law in what you send to the Supreme Court, they'll dismiss it. And it has to be abolition. Can't be anything else. And I think the message that I want to give to Oklahoma legislators is either you get on board to abolish abortion, or we do everything we can to abolish your position.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the two options.
Get out the way.
Absolutely. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lead, follow, or get out of the way, but don't impede, don't hinder anymore. What we're trying to do.
Yeah. And on the equal protection, Abby Johnson point, kind of stuff we're talking about, one of the really interesting things about that is that she's up there. It's a rally for the Republican Party of Texas is holding to promote the legislative priorities of the Republican Party of Texas that were passed during their convention. And abolitionists in Texas won. So you had the abolitionists against the pro-lifers fighting within the Republican Party
and to get
an abolitionist priority or a pro-life incrementalist priority that Texas Alliance for Life and Texas Right to Life were fighting for. And the abolitionists won, and the abolition priority is on there. And then what the leadership of the party did is they had Abby Johnson come speak on behalf of the abolitionist priority that won. And so they're trying to kind of like, okay, so we lost, the abolitionists won. They put more pressure on us to actually make this the priority of the party. But we're going to try to kind of co-opt it by putting someone like Abby Johnson up on stage to speak on behalf of it. She used equal protection. She's up there talking about equal protection, even though she opposes it.
Yeah.
She's talking about abolition, even though she opposes it.
Because it's all divide and conquer, use their language, subversion.
It's just the playbook of heretics and Satan, changing the meaning of words so that they can use it for their own purposes.
Oh, yeah. If you want to know whether an organization is scheming to keep abortion legal, just are they hiring Abby Johnson to speak?
Right.
I know that sounds crazy.
That's true, though.
But it's and I watched that and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, there's however many 100 people there, 1,000 people, whatever, and they're clapping, and I'm like, some of those people clapping are us, like are with us. They cannot see through what she's doing. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm not allowed to comment on Facebook, but I'm like, what kind of devilry is this? And then Facebook's like, you're not allowed to post that. And I'm like, so, but it's like, it is this age old, did God really say, or, this slight, it sounds true, it sounds good. And then you have this shift, and the person that's sort of that they hire in is the chief deceiver.
Just undermines the value of language when you can change in the minds of people the meaning of the words that you're saying, but the literal meaning of the words.
They use our vocabulary, but not our dictionary.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Mormons do to Christianity.
Exactly.
And just because, so I'm not speaking between the lines, and whatever. Like, I will say this: in Oklahoma, we have Abolition Day, so Abolition Day Rally on February 9th. Now, previous week, there's Rose Day.
Right. I think, is she coming to speak to
And
Rose
she's
Day?
supposed
Abby
to.
Johnson.
I don't know if she's still on there. I know that there are some faithful guys trying to. I mean, Abby Johnson basically denies the gospel and says you can't be saved unless you're in the Church of Rome. But the Baptists are going to shell out $10,000 or whatever to get her to speak. Now, I know
I'll do it for one.
I will pay them $10,000 to let me
Just pay us the $10,000 and fund our rally. That would be a much better.
Cancel Rose Day. Come to Abolition Day. I mean, to me and to the people who understand what's going on, Rose Day is the anti-abolition. It's a yearly event where you go and you bring roses and you give them to legislators for not abolishing abortion.
Right. Like saying you're doing a good job. See,
it's flattery.
Last year, it was canceled. It was canceled last year because I was ready.
Praise God.
My wife was trying to rein me back in. I was ready. I was going with 15 dead roses to Greg Treat's office and going to put them in his office and say, "Look, I know they're going to throw them away, but look, this is the 15 dead babies every day.
Yeah,
until you change your position." And that's what I want to do for Rose Day. I want to take dead roses and pass them out.
Yeah.
Because that's what represents what's going on.
Well, just somehow when you go, make sure that they don't interpret you as being part of it. Because
my note attached to it will be sure that they may see my presence there, but I think they'll know better.
Because I think I know they'll identify you, but I
think this is more a point for the people out there watching.
Yeah, for the people out there watching. I mean, certainly some abolitionists are going to go and pass out things for Abolition Day and so on and so forth. But one of the things that we're doing to try to shift the paradigm from pro-life to abolition is when the legislature looks at Rose Day, they need to basically see a dying rally.
Right.
A dying movement.
A dying movement, a dying pro-life, and something that they can no longer trust in. Because basically, as long as they think, listen, the scheme is still working, I'm going to get the votes and the support and the praise and the flowers from all these idiots who think that I'm ending abortion. Well, if they look at it and there's tumbleweeds blowing around at Rose Day, and then there's masses at Abolition Day, yes, I would love for them to have a conviction of the Spirit of God and become abolitionists. But they're politicians. Yeah. They're going to be like,
exactly.
Oh, I got to be an abolitionist. Right. And so we need the Abolition Day crowd. This is so important to just be so much larger than the Rose Day crowd, because this is the only language that these legislators. And so whereas we're saying something very good about a movement within the Baptist General Convention, now called Oklahoma Baptist, there's still, like you said, that mixed leadership. And I know there's debates among them.
Oh, yeah. They're taking place.
Yeah.
But I'll say here, I mean, we're the principal organizers of Abolition Day. We would love if Oklahoma Baptist was like, we're for the abolition of abortion. We have way more money than you and way more influence. We'd love to do Abolition Day. We're like, come on and co-sponsor it until we can trust you. Yeah, exactly. Then you can have it. Because that's what the Baptists should be doing.
Sure.
Shepherding their people to say, thou shalt not murder, not, did God really say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to the leaders of the convention, you can partner with people like Abby Johnson and Tony Lowinger, or you can partner with people like the people in this room and the Oklahoma Free Will Baptists and people like End Abortion Now and Jeff Durbin and people who are fighting for the total immediate abolition of abortion. Or you can do Abby Johnson and Tony Lowinger.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be a difficult call. It should not at all be a difficult call.
And you can flesh out the language of the resolution adopted in 2019 that our president immediate past president, Blake Gideon, reminded the people of at our shortened, our abbreviated convention.
That was awesome to see him do that.
Yeah,
Where
it was great.
This is still the resolution that we're operating by.
Yep.
You can do that. That's very easy.
Yeah.
End it immediately without exception or compromise.
And the only resolution of the Oklahoma Baptists this year.
Exactly.
So,
right.
I mean, because I think, maybe, people, that's a good thing to announce on the show. Like when we're talking about past people who've, done bad things, you may be thinking, bad things about like Blake Gideon. But Blake Gideon, we're not speaking of Blake Gideon. Blake Gideon is trying to do what he can.
That's right.
Even though unfortunately, he no longer has the same amount of power, but he still has the same amount of
He's an influencer. He's an influencer in Oklahoma Baptist.
Yeah, and so he's not one of these guys that's working against us at this moment. So I think that that's something to pray for, definitely. But people need to understand that like as you say, there's only a matter of time.
That's right.
People are looking at this and they're going like, why are the Baptists paying, pardon me, the Romanists? It's absolutely nuts that you've got the Abolition Day where you're going to have Oklahoma Baptist pastors, leaders, faithful Christians getting up, decrying abortion as murder, preaching the gospel in the face of it, calling on the legislature to repent and follow God. And then at Rose Day, you're going to have a professed faithful member of the only church, the Catholic Church, talking about how abortion needs to be regulated, maybe using our language, but supporting the continued slaughter of children. Mm-hmm. You've got one group that's sort of being, those are the, we don't associate with them, preaching the gospel. And then the group that's not preaching the gospel is the best. So it's just...
This was one of the original things that made me more comfortable with abolition was the willingness to partner with Roman Catholics or atheists or anyone. If you're in the pro-life movement, you're really willing to partner with anybody.
Yeah, LGBTQF.
But it was the thing that got Austin fired. That was you can't go partner or be seen with abolitionists. Yeah. It's like these are people who are preaching the gospel, who obviously are convicted that this is the right path, and we're not allowed to even associate with them, be in the same room with them.
Yeah.
But we're working day in and day out with Roman Catholics, with atheists, with all kinds of people, anyone who opposes abortion. It really shows where the priorities are.
That put a bright light in your eyes, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
What? And then back to the Baptist Convention, just how crazy it is that we were just talking to you earlier while the cameras were off about how Oklahoma Baptist is probably has the most influence in terms of making calls about who speaks at Rose Day.
Right.
And they're bringing in somebody who one is a Roman Catholic, so they are completely in opposition to Oklahoma Baptist theology.
Right.
Not only that, but she is an avid, active opponent of the resolution that you guys passed, calling for the immediate end of abortion. An active opponent. She's putting posts up on Facebook saying about how evil the Abolition of Abortion in Texas Act is, and how it's supported by all these evil abolitionist AHA people.
And how foolish it would be to abolish abortion because of all the federal funding it's just. I'm going. Please help me here.
Yeah.
On and on and on.
Yeah.
It's just insanity that is who
and if she's a faithful Romanist, then she would look out on the crowd on Rose Day and she would say to herself, I'm looking at a bunch of lapsed Christians.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, that's maybe what she actually thinks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it does underscore the idolatry of the pro-life movement. It's like, well, our God isn't going to send the rain if we get rid of the sacrifice. So we have to keep that going.
Well, that some pro-lifers watching this, or some people that are on the fence, are like, guys, but you can't offend Catholics because you need them. You need their numbers. And it's like, well, in the state of Oklahoma, technically we don't.
Right.
Population-wise, literally we don't. Like, if just the Southern Baptist got behind abolition and voted for only abolitionist candidates and supported abolitionist bills, that's all it would take.
Right.
And we're talking like half of the Catholics in Oklahoma, which is a small percentage, are Democrats. So, like, we sort of bend over backwards of this fear. It's pragmatism again.
Sure.
That if we don't have fellowship with Belial or whatever, we're not going to be able, like, we must be yoked with people that God says we shouldn't be yoked with if we're going to be successful.
I'm reminded when the disciples were concerned about Jesus' teaching, and they said, "Rabbi, you have offended the Pharisees." I love Jesus' response. Let them be offended.
Yeah.
If you're not with us, because we're counting on God to do this.
Right.
We don't need certain numbers. I had somebody reach out to me back in late summer, early fall, said, if Oklahoma Baptists will lead the way to abolish abortion, the Assemblies of God will get on board with you. The Free Will Baptists will get on board with you. But Oklahoma Baptists have got to lead the way. If they won't lead the way, then our leadership is less courageous. That's not maybe the right word.
Yeah.
Less inclined to move that way.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a cause of concern if everybody is coming into the abolitionist movement. Maybe we're not being hard-hitting enough with our truth-telling.
True. But I mean, I think that it doesn't take a huge number, and that's why when we are, at our best and we're willing to speak truth to power.
And that is for like atheists and things like that, not the
Right.
Yeah.
Not the Free Will Baptist. Which I think we should note is often as we can that resolution-wise, the Free Will Baptists
they have
are
the
on board.
strongest one.
The
They have the strongest
Southern
one.
Baptists are on board. The GOP is on board. A lot of people are on board, but then there's leadership who are still using this weapon of fear that that it isn't ready. But if they would just stand up and lead, like I always think about and this is going to sound terribly arrogant, but I always think about that scene where Braveheart,
Amen.
William Wallace is talking to Robert the Bruce, and he's like, if you would just lead, I would follow you. That's how I feel.
My name is William Wallace Ascol.
See, you are Braveheart, and you're talking,
and people are standing in line to stretch me out on the rack too.
Yeah, and if that's what it takes, I feel you're willing to do it. Just yell abolition
Exactly
as
right.
they're pulling your guts out.
My dying breath.
But I mean, it's one of these things where do the boards of the BGCO, Oklahoma Baptist, realize that they're those nobles in Act 2 of Braveheart?
They will.
I think some of them are going, oh, darn. Because we are for certain going out on the battlefield, knocking them off their horses, pulling off their helmets and being like, oh my gosh, it's the leader of the, I mean, that's happening. And I think, the beautiful thing, and I don't know, I'm not a historian of that period, but the beautiful thing is at the end of Braveheart, Mel Gibson's Braveheart, Robert the Bruce, which I know in history was the real leader,
right,
is leading. Why? Repentance.
That's right.
It was repentance. It was a true, I was going this way, now I'm going that way. Now it may have been motivated. I don't know. I don't care. Going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
The moment that the leaders of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma go the direction of abolition in a very strong way, they're not just dressed up for battle, but they actually pull out their swords.
Yeah,
it's over.
And I think you've made a good point here. We need to. One of the things I try to do is leave room for repentance. Sun Tzu in The Art of War says you need to leave room for your enemy to become your ally.
Yeah, it's hard.
And it is because there's a part of me that it's just wired in me to devastate. Yeah, and I want to. I want to win them, not win the argument to their detriment, but win them. And I think the message that I'm trying to send out is, look, I was where you are, okay?
Yeah.
And you can, by God's grace, get where you need to be. It's not so much where I am, because I'm only there because the Lord convicted me of my apathy and my complacency. And I would invite anyone to join the battle because we're on the Lord's side here. God, He hates those who shed innocent blood. There's no question about that. The sixth commandment is as clear as it can be.
Yeah.
And it's being violated continually across the land. We have blood running up to the horses' bridles from the death of these babies, and everybody ought to be willing to join us. Now, here's where pragmatism, where it can be our friend. You can, don't want this to sound wrong now.
Someone's gonna basically cut this whole program at that line.
You can, because pragmatists are willing to get on board with what works. When they become convinced of our argument that it does work, because God works it, God makes it work, then they will join us in droves. Pragmatists will.
Oh, yeah.
And see, at that point, I'm not going to be standing there checking, why did you join us?
Yeah. I mean, like, sorry, you're not actually,
no.
which I think we should address that is a problem with some abolitionists. Like, some people might think it's a problem with me, but like, I feel like constantly I'm like, I'm going to let it go that, you know, you're not really publicly repenting here. You're basically pretending like you've always been on board and we're going to allow you to. But there are some abolitionists who, when, you know, like one abolitionist was, you know, saying something like, yeah, I went to Abolition Day, but there were a lot of people there and it was like a big stage and big production and looked like you spent a lot of money and stuff. And I just missed the old days of abandoned buildings. And
oh, good. You know, that's the guy, like, that's the capital F fundamentalist who says, you know, I'm not so sure about anybody but me and thee, and I'm not always so sure about thee.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to stop that at some point and say, welcome to the battle. Because we said a while ago,
allow them to come in.
Absolutely.
And don't like compromise, but train.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't let them get in the engine room and drive the train, but they're welcome on board.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know that the legislators look out the window and they see a big train coming full of people.
Yeah.
They're not going to go, now I wonder which one of these are just going along for the ride and which one of these are fire-breathing principled abolitionists. No, they're going to look at the train and go, oh my goodness, what's coming down the track.
Someone says, well, the only reason that person's going with you now is because it's now unpopular not to. And you're like, well, that tells us something really good, though.
And I think there's a lot of people in any movement, especially in modern Christianity, that have adopted this pessimistic view about things. Like, I'm going to continue to fight, probably fruitlessly, but it's just I'm gonna do it because it's my duty type thing.
And feel good about it.
It's good that you're doing your duty, yes, but we shouldn't be training ourselves to expect defeat.
No.
Because when we get to the point of actual success, suddenly those same people will start to turn on the successful movement and say, look, they're agreeing with me, I gotta hate on them because I shouldn't be successful. I should be losing in some way.
I had a fellow look at me, I was in a little gathering years ago, and I'd just become convinced of the Reformed faith, okay? And I was, at the time, associate pastor of a 5,000 member congregation. All right. Ooh. So I'm sitting in this little circle of people, and they're telling their stories about how they came to, and it comes around to me. And I said, well, you know, the Lord convinced me of these things. And they said, where you serve? I said, well, Broadmoor. And they said, you're at that big church down the road? I said, well, yeah. He said, and they let you stay there, believe what you? I said, well, they did as of this morning. I mean, I left. And I said, I guess I could get back and the locks would be changed and my library be piled out in the parking lot. I said, but not so far. Well, brother, you must be compromising something.
Oh, yeah, I
know. In other words, for you to be there, that mentality, I think Douglas Wilson calls it pessimillennialism. You know, it's a pessimistic view of things. We have to have a hopeful view of things. If Christ is king, and he is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and his will and his way is going to prevail, and he will reign wherever the sun does its successive journeys run, then somewhere along the way, we have to be hopeful. But that, you know, that God willing, we will see this. And if some folks see it later than we have, we got to say amen.
Or when they come along, they don't see it. They're not where we're at. This is the thing. Like, somebody is like, you know what? Abortion is murder. It should be abolished. They may not understand the implications of IVF yet and say something kind of stupid. Well, the moment they do that, there's a moment to teach, instruct, come alongside. Not a moment to be like, see, compromiser.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are battling this. This is like a day in, day out thing where, and you know, I love folks. I love the people I'm talking about right now, but it's the original people. And it's like, you look at a bell curve, you know, the early innovators,
early adopters,
they have to look as the new folks come in and be kind of okay with growth.
Yeah.
If you got into this movement because you wanted to be small radical that no one listened to, but that's not the leadership of this movement. Like, it's like, no, we understand we're small, we're radical, no one's listening to us. But at some point in time, the seeds we're planting are going to grow.
Exactly.
And we're going to have a full-on reformation and revolution here. And if you're one of these abolitionists just like mad because now all of a sudden we can put a stage in front of the Capitol and fill the plaza, Well, shame on you.
Right.
Like, shame on you.
Yeah.
And
I
they're
think
working against us.
a lot of people just don't see that pessimistic theology as a function of faithlessness. It's like this is inherent to a worldview that is saying, I'm not going to be successful because they don't believe that when the word goes out, it doesn't return void.
Right.
They don't believe that there is actual repentance that God can do miraculously in the lives of people who are living in this day and age.
Yeah.
They want to believe that they're the only one and that they're going to be completely alone for so long because it's like, this is a fruit of the fact that I am doing the right thing because no one wants to talk to me anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hunker down in some cave waiting for the rapture. You know,
it's a badge of orthodoxy, sort of thing.
Yeah. And then the assumption that anytime you're getting big and having influence, you must be compromising.
Right.
Like when people come along and they say, well, you must be compromising. I'm like, on what? The 5 tenets, the 2 modes, the 7 stages? I don't compromise on any of that. But in your mind, I must be. But why not just celebrate the fact that all these Baptist pastors, I mean, Abolition Month, they're literally teaching the 5 tenets of abolitionism in all these churches.
Yeah.
And it's like, and what tenet are we compromising? Like, that there's just this suspicion you must be because there's more than 20 people.
See, I want to ask people like that, what have you been praying?
Oh, yeah.
See, have you been praying, Lord, bring an end to abortion? But we know you won't. I mean, Lord, abolish abortion. In our day, let us live to see the day when babies will not be slaughtered anymore in our state and beyond. Have you been praying that?
Yeah.
Why then will you not work toward that? Yeah. Why would you be suspicious when he brings other people alongside you to say the same thing, who are joining with you in prayer, laboring with you in their energies? Why would you then go,
what have you been praying for?
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's a young man that I think about often who's no longer with us. And back in 2012, if I were to be sitting with him, coffee shop or something, and say, one of these days, we're going to be on the front page of the Daily Oklahoman, and they're going to be saying abolitionists who are not pro-lifers have rallied together to call for the abolition of abortion as murder, and they're supporting a bill that is uncompromisingly, without exception, seeking to criminalize abortion in the face of federal courts. This young man would have wept. Is that a reality? Tell me, is that a reality? And then, I say, yeah, that's where we're heading. But then by the time that it happened, he was like, what is this compromise?
Oh, wow.
And it's just so heartbreaking to see that. But it is a spirit of I think it's just a thing. And, I have to fight it.
Sure. We all do.
You have to fight it because I think that one of the sort of fleshy, and it's the kind of person that may be attracted to abolitionism, just naturally. Right. That kind of wants to be the radical.
It's counterculture. It's against mainstream.
Yeah.
You see, I tell people all the time that the devil doesn't care which ditch he pushes us into. Okay, yeah. He can push you into the ditch of a false hopefulness, pie in the sky, but he just soon push you into a ditch of a despairing pessimism.
Yeah.
And questioning. Doesn't matter to him because either ditch gets you.
Yeah.
And the challenge we have is to stay on the path, stay on the evangelical path of the gospel. Make the main thing, stay focused, welcome those who come. I don't have to check your credentials. If you stand with me on the Capitol lawn, again, I'll say it, the legislators don't look out and go, he's half-hearted there, fire-breathing there. No, they look out and go, oh my goodness.
I'm not going to win re-election if I go against these people.
Yeah, I think there's basically, I think, 2 attitudes of people that come into abolitionism as well. People will come in believing, okay, well, everyone is doing this badly. Now, as a Christian, as someone who has to be light in the world, how are we, casting out the darkness right now? How are we bringing the truth to bear here? And how is it actually going to get better by doing this? And then the other one that comes in is thinking, wow, I get to believe that everyone else is bad. Like, yes. I am righteous. I'm doing the good thing. Everyone else is.
Everybody.
Yeah, everyone else is just ultimately terrible and trash. It's like, no, but you have to be coming into this believing that by your influence, by what you're saying that is true, by the power of Christ, he is going to bring about people coming into this and changing their mind.
That's right.
They're not going to stay that way. You are acting as a light. You're acting as salt. These things are changing because of the influence you're having in the world.
Yeah.
As opposed to just believing that everyone else is bad and you get to be good from now.
Right.
And anyone watching this who's thinking, well, I like the abolitionist movement back when they used to like rebuke people, consider yourself rebuked. We're still doing it.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that as we've gone up that bell curve,
There's less people we have to rebuke.
yeah, there's more people coming along, and we have to turn around and we have to look at some of the early innovators.
And we like praising people who are doing the good things now. Like it's like
Yeah.
the people who are changing. It's so enjoyable to be seeing them come in and just be able to say an encouraging good word to them because we're glad that they're doing it.
Yeah,
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
I don't like the abolition movement anymore because they've got pastors involved. It's like, well, one of the tenets has been from the very beginning that this is a church-led, church-driven. Of course, we would have like it's very clear from the Word of God that He's given the church pastors. That's one of the 5 offices, right?
Right.
Like, come on. Of course, if the Spirit of God is real, the Word of God is real, pastors are going to get on board with this. If you're mad at the movement because you look and you see now, you look at the conference, the Abolition Now conference speakers lineup, and you're like, well, 4 or 5 of these guys have institutional churches or something like that. But this must be sold out. It's like, you need to be very happy that 4 or 5 of these guys have local churches and they're leading them in the principles of abolition.
Right.
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 Celebrate that. And, so I think we've harped on that quite a bit, but that's what I think we're supposed to harp on, because we don't want those people staying home from Abolition Day,
No. No.
being mad at this program or mad at us. We want them.
No, we
coming.
want all comers.
Yeah.
We want all comers. Guys that have been in the battle a long time, come on. Don't stop now. This is not the time to stop.
Yeah.
Guys that are just coming forward, get on board. We're just in COVID-19. We're not taking your temperature and find out all this. Show up.
Yeah.
We're gonna let you join us because we believe God is doing something and we don't want you to miss out on what God is doing.
Yeah. Well, like, just to be clear, like in the whole like Abolition Day, like I like what you said. It's not necessarily that there are any pro-lifers in the engine room. It's not necessarily that there are any sort of compromisers in the engine room. But if someone's just sort of like, listen, I'm a pro-lifer, I don't really like abolitionists, I don't really want to call myself an abolitionist, I'm really looking in on this thing, but I do agree that abortion should be treated as murder. We don't want to do anything to prohibit you from coming.
Come on.
Like, we want you to come. Like, that's what the Abolition Now conference on the 8th and 9th is designed to do. Like, I don't want to just preach or teach to the converted. I want people coming like with a sort of secret, like, well, yeah, I'm not really too sure about this whole ignore Roe thing. I want to answer that question.
Sure.
And I want you to come to Abolition Day to stand up for justice and mercy, even if you're still supporting weird pro-life things that I don't like. I hope to convert you, but like pro-lifers say, we're doing both and. Well, if that's true, everyone who comes to the anti-abolition thing, the Rose Day thing, should turn around and come to Abolition Day. Mm-hmm. Do both and.
That's right.
So we don't want to prohibit pro-lifers from
No.
coming to Abolition Day either.
No, not at all. All comers.
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah.
You were talking about, or you mentioned last year there was a family, and it was a girl in the family who was holding up I forget what the sign said, but it had a pro-life thing on it. And then Emily Siddiqui is up on stage saying,
Yeah.
2 years ago I would have called myself a pro-lifer, but then I saw that all the compromise, it's not good, and we should be abolitionists and move beyond pro-life with me. Be an abolitionist. And this girl holding up the pro-life sign puts down the sign.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I'm glad she's there, and she may
And
not
she's
even
learning.
totally agree,
Yeah.
but she's just kind of like,
Oh, I guess this
is
isn't
probably
what
not
we're doing anymore.
There you go.
Yeah.
they're right. And so,
And that's awesome. That's not a
Exactly.
bad thing
No,
that
that's a
she was
wonderful
there.
thing.
That girl, that family learned that there's a difference and that
Oh,
they
yeah.
should be crossing from this side of the line over to this side of the line. And that is amazing, and that's what we need.
yeah. And we don't need that guy who wasn't there, who I messaged and said, hey, where were you? And he says, well, I watched some of the footage and I saw someone there with a 40 days for life sign. I'm like, well, praise God, someone from that
Exactly.
cult is here getting evangelized. Why are you mad about it?
Yeah.
So, disclaimer, not everybody who's done a 40 Days for Life thing is part of a cult. That's just the sort of thing that I say. We're not going to edit it out, but definitely you're going to see, like Abolition Day, if there's so many people there that from the stage we can look out and be like, I don't necessarily agree with that sign and that sign. That's a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah. Especially if we're still teaching that they think, maybe I should change my sign from choose life to you shouldn't have a choice to murder, So yeah, I think, maybe we've nailed that pretty well. Yeah. But we do want people to understand the importance of just coming and being like, I think some people who regularly do abolition stuff, go to abortion clinics, engage online, may kind of get a little exasperated with big events, kind of like, oh, okay, well, but this big event, there's going to be all these people. This is the only thing they do. So I'm not going to do it. Well, you should do it.
Absolutely.
It is wrong to only do the big event.
The people who've had the exposure, the ones on the front line in abortion mills and things, they need to be in the middle of all this because you're going to have to rub shoulders with people. I try to tell folks, remember, you have been where they are. They have not been where you are yet.
Yeah.
Give them that opportunity. Let them meet you. Let them get to know you. Let them hang around you. Bring them along. Somebody was patient with us.
Right.
I mean, you didn't write to me and say, well, why now? You're an old fella. Why are you waking up now?
Yeah.
You should have been doing this years ago. It's too late for you. You didn't say that.
Didn't cross my mind.
But the contact was there, and I was glad to come in the middle of.
Yeah. And then on the receiving end, you didn't say, well, you've made mistakes and you've done some dumb things and you've made it hard. You said, well, I don't know, but I know this is right.
Yeah.
And and I do think that come Abolition Day, you're going to have people who have previously been on opposite sides on things.
Sure.
You're going to actually have Calvinists and Arminians. You're going to have charismatics and, non-charismatic,
Cessationists.
Yeah. You're going to have secessionist and nullifications. I mean, you're going to have people that will come together. Now, that doesn't mean that doctrine doesn't matter, or theological discussions don't matter, but it does mean that we are willing to stand together against the murder of our preborn neighbors, and that isn't compromise. That isn't breaking yoke. And as I said, from the leadership standpoint, we are not making concessions and compromising.
No.
But we're saying, yeah, come all.
Absolutely.
So, event reminders. Abolition Day. Probably, yes, we want people regularly fighting abortion day in and day out. You live in the midst of a Holocaust. It isn't about one day. But there's one day that sort of is a symbol of the state of the abolitionist movement in Oklahoma and kind of nationally, because a lot of people come from states where there's nothing going on. But that is February 9th. Super important. Super important. Not only that you come, but that you are daily actively recruiting other people to come with you.
Right.
Like if you have a church, shepherding that whole church, getting your whole Sunday school class to come, using whatever influence you have. Now, we say 9:30 a.m. Outside at the Capitol. 9:30 a.m.'s pretty early.
February 9th.
There's going to be parking issues and stuff. So we will probably have a little program and a little ditty outside at 10. 9:30 to 10, let people come. There'll be videos and music and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll have a rally from, 10 to 10:30 or something. And then we're going to want everybody to move beyond attending something and go into the Capitol and talk to your senator, talk to your House rep. And we're going to do everything we can, regardless of COVID-19 restrictions and stuff. We're going to say, listen, the state of Oklahoma has a Capitol. It's wherever our elected representatives are. We're going to go. We're going to show them our numbers, show them who we are, and we're going to call them to repentance and to establish justice. We're not there to give them flowers.
No.
We're not there to break their windows or any other stuff or do anything crazy or climb any walls. We're not a threat of violence at all. We are the people coming and saying, listen, that Declaration of Independence and the whole right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that oath to the Constitution, keep that. Hey, professing Christians, keep the law of God. And so super important, February 9th, got to be there. Now, if you think it's just like one day, it's a massively important day.
Right.
One of the House reps that I talked to, he said, well, I mean, if I can use the bathroom on Abolition Day, if I can easily get out of my office and go to the bathroom, probably not going to support your bill. I mean, it's like a weird thing.
Maybe
like
it's strange, isn't it?
He's basically saying, you got to clog the halls. And he's not saying something that's crazy, because when you look back on it, they didn't want to give the teachers a raise, and they didn't want to decriminalize medical marijuana. I mean, decriminalizing medical marijuana and regulating that is against federal law and Supreme Court rulings.
Right.
They don't want to do that. What's the repercussions of that? They don't really know. But when the people overwhelmingly say, we want this, when the teachers overwhelmingly say, we're not leaving your capital and we're not teaching your students until you give us what we want, they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Greg Treat himself has said, we're not going to go against the will of the people. And he will practice nullification. But then he says, whenever there's abolition, I'm not going to practice nullification. His tune will change.
That's right. We need to make a few of these guys wet their pants then, right?
Yeah. Wet their pants, and they need to look out on the seas of people and say,
exactly.
what ramifications does this have on my future career as a politician? Now, I'd love it if they thought, well, I don't want to stand before Jesus and explain.
Well, they may get there at some point. The flowers come after the legislature does its business.
Oh, yeah.
When it adopts a law. We'll be passing out flowers like nobody's business.
We'll have a big Rose Day. The first Rose Day will occur after
Exactly right.
successful abolition. So that's February 9th. February 8th through 9th is the Abolition Now Conference. You've agreed to speak at that, right?
I think if you asked me to do that, I have to agree.
There's a lot of things up in the air right
Right.
now.
And let me say to the folks listening to this, Facebook has essentially handcuffed Russell and Free the States and all these good people. So I want to say to you, share this message with everybody you can. Send a text out. Send an email out. February the 9th. Let's get the word out, because Facebook has locked them down to make sure that the message is not getting out. Okay, that's one thing I want to say. Another thing I want to say is, if you got some money to pony up, send it to Free the States. All right? Let's support this. Get some money in the coffers so these folks can do what they do as well as they do it. Don't let the powers that be hamstring this powerful movement. We're at a critical time. We need your prayers. We need your support. And when I say send it to Free the States, I'm not talking about send it to me. I'm talking about send it to these good men right here who are laboring. Step forward and do the right thing, okay? I love these guys. I thank God for them. Thrilled that in God's providence He's let me meet them and co-labor with them. But we can't just stand on the sideline and applaud.
Yeah.
We've got to get in the middle and help them strengthen their arms, lift up their arms, because now is a critical time.
Amen. And it's behind the scenes look. I mean, these things do cost money. Just the stage, the sound, the video feed, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of hard to tell. It's like, we want people, we want money, Yeah. And what we would use the money for is to get more people there. You say, well, like, Facebook's not letting us boost posts. We got to try to do what we can. We print things and we got to run all over the place, handing them out. Cost money, radio program and all that kind of stuff. And that's another one of those things where abolitionists are like, well, I like the abolitionist movement back before we raised money. Well, it's like, well, the problem is now we're like, we got legislative bills to promote.
Right.
You got to say, like, this Senate bill, not that Senate bill. And it really is, you have to reach a number of people. It's not like we're buying airplanes.
Right.
We're trying to boost post or, put radio ads up or something. And so, we're trying to be faithful with whatever we have. Now we're going to do it with whatever we have.
Sure.
And, if it's the will of God that we can't use social media to get people there, we're expecting word of mouth. And, we're expecting a crowd as bigger than last year. We've got more pastors involved. And because we know that a lot of people aren't educated maybe on all the nuances, and we don't want to leave them there, and we don't want them to go into the Capitol and not know how to properly argue for these things. We are doing a conference on the 8th and 9th. So starting Monday morning, we are going to start some sessions and run basically all Monday. And just, we have leaders of the abolition movement from across the country, but also sort of the leaders locally that are going to be giving sessions,
Tell us where that's going to be.
It's going to be on Monday. It's going to be the Embassy Suites. Is there a special name of that Embassy Suites?
Downtown. I mean, it's right by the Capitol.
Yeah, it's the Embassy Suites near the Capitol.
All the details if you go to freethestates.org, at this slider right in the middle of the screen, just wait for this second slider, and it'll be about the conference. So click there. You can register there, get all the details there.
Yeah. There's a registration fee right now. It's $79. That basically just helps us rent the room, and
I've already registered. I hope you will too.
Yeah, I haven't registered, but
there's a
like
family discount as well too. So if you
family
bring in a family of like 12 kids or something like that, there's a big discount that you can get on that.
So
109. We want you to bring all your kids. We want you to bring your teenagers, like, come on, get them in there, get them educated. But the idea is that we're going to tell people, like, what is abolitionism? What are the tenets? Ideologically, is it biblical? Okay, what's the bill look like? How do you lobby for the bill? How do you talk to legislators? We'll have previous legislators. We'll have current legislators. We'll have like sort of like the head lobbyist, the head bill writer, the head pastors, all basically giving talks designed to, equip people to where, like, on Tuesday, when they walk down the hall and they walk into the senator's office and the senator says, well, what about this? They've got the answer. What about this? And so we know that lots of people are just going to be like, I'm here because abortion's murder and I'm opposed to it. But as many people as we can sort of like fully educate, and we're going to do as much as we can on Monday. And then Tuesday, of course, Abolition Day, and then we'll have an evening rally. We'll pick up people. And yes, there's a registration fee.
Evening conference.
Yeah, an evening conference session. Yeah. But, we'll be opening it up, and anyone who wants to come can come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you visit freethestates.org to register for the rally. And we just want to say thank you so much for coming in, Pastor Ascol. It's always a huge encouragement to us to be able to speak to you and to be able to see the influence that you're having on the Southern Baptists. And you've greatly encouraged us. So
it's a joy to be here with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, like, whenever you're sitting there having a conversation and you listen to someone, you're like, ooh, what he just said, I feel like, not to charismatic warning. I feel like what you just said is going to really work on someone's heart. So yeah, supremely appreciative that you made the drive down here to speak this. Again, please share this.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode. Make sure you join us next week, next Thursday at 6.